This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
It was so terrifying. So we
was it more terrifying than having sex for your first time?
I mean, the first time I had sex, I had been dating the girl for 2 years. So yeah.
She made you wait that long?
She didn't make me wait that long. All right, welcome into the practice squad. Stroz, I've noticed this theme of these rundowns that you create lately. I don't know if it's because... Do you already know where I'm going?
Yeah, because when I was putting it together, I was like, I wonder if he says anything this week.
You do it all the time. We plan these topics. We talk out a little bit of our thoughts. And you just word my takes in ways that I didn't say, nor do I intend to.
I take creative liberty with what you tell me. It's great.
I think Stroz is a little bit more of the Skip Bayless Stephen A. Smith type than myself, but we will get into it. I am recording from a brand new PC. The most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life was build this PC. I mean, genuinely just, it was so terrifying. So
was it more terrifying than having sex for your first time?
I mean, the first time I had sex, I had been dating the girl for 2 years. So yeah.
She made you wait that long?
She didn't make me wait that long.
You made her wait that long?
So, I mean, I think it was, let me put it this way.
Okay, wait, hold on, pause. Pause.
I have no problem.
This is the best tease ever. We'll get into this in the middle segment for sure.
We don't want to get into my computer in the middle segment?
No, we are, but it's all going to get wrapped up. It's going to be this gigantic ball of mess. It's going to be so much fun.
Okay, we'll get into that in the second segment. Also, a lot of Stafford talk in the national landscape this week, I guess I would say. Mm-hmm. And I gotta be honest, it has me thinking he's being viewed so much higher now that he's not in Detroit, and I'm kind of nervous about it. We'll get into that. But first, I don't want to sit here and dive deep into the MLB draft. It would be disingenuous to suggest either of us know what we're talking about. I do know that Stroz probably hates the pick passionately because that's just the way he works.
I'll be honest with you, I do not. But
really?
I was surprised. I don't know anything about him. I know not. He's a kid in high school. I know nothing about him.
But maybe I have a bigger problem with it than you do. There's a track record of high school pitchers not performing well in the first round. Right. They went high school pitcher. Some people don't like that they didn't go somebody who's more MLB ready, get in college kid who could maybe be up in a year or two.
Well, see, hold on. So that was the thing that really surprised me, right? Kumar Rocker's there. Comes from Vanderbilt, same place JV came from, and he has some filthy stuff. He looks like he could be a guy who could be up here in 2 years. Instead, you go with the guy who's going to maybe take 5 or 6. I get it. I get why the fan base is upset.
So, I remember Rocker the last couple of years had been like the guy. Mm-hmm. And I didn't follow anything particularly closely, so I didn't know how much that changed. But as the draft actually showed up, Kumar Rocker's velocity has been going down, which is a really scary thought for a college kid. So I'm glad they didn't go that route. Most people upset they didn't take Mayer, the shortstop, who by many was considered another kid, 18-year-old, who was considered by many to be the best prospect in the draft. And they say he could still be up in 2 years. But anyways, what I'm getting to here is the Tigers took a major risk at 3. And what I think is fascinating about that is when I look at the landscape of general managers in Detroit, we are in a relatively positive place in terms of the way fans feel about them, right? There might be some, I'll say this, Troy Weaver, I think universally in Detroit is loved. Brad Holmes hasn't done enough yet to have a strong feel one way or the other, but I think most people lean positive towards Brad Holmes. Yzerman, everyone loved it when he first got here. I don't follow hockey enough to tell you where people stand now. My rate is that for the most part, people are still pretty cool with him.
I will say this, Steve Yzerman, the fan base still loves him, but I think it's starting to get a little bit shaky because they're not seeing the turnaround as quickly as they wanted. So we'll put a pin in that for maybe some other time.
Well, and Elaville is the only one that I think the consensus is negative about. Maybe people aren't totally out on him yet, but I definitely don't think people are feeling good about him. But I sit here and I see them take that risk, and I think outside of Yzerman, of course, another Ilitch-owned team, he might have the longest leash in Detroit. I think, and I'm talking about now. I'm not talking from start of tenure, which I believe we're going on 7 years for Al Avila. I'm talking right here, right now. I think Al Avila may have a longer leash than Brad Holmes or Troy Weaver. Troy Weaver especially. Everything he's done so far, I think people are happy about, but I just don't buy. I don't buy that the Pistons are going to sit by for 5-6 years unless they start seeing, success. I don't believe Al Avila drafts an 18-year-old pitcher who young pitchers have a history of not panning out and have a history of taking a long time to get to the league. I don't think he does that if he doesn't feel safe, that there's no rush.
I'll do you one better. I think he has the longest leash of everybody.
You think longer than Yzerman?
Yes. And here's the thing. I think with Yzerman, I feel like if he knows he can't get the job done or it's just not working out, I think he would bail before he probably would get fired. All that being said, I think in the end, Al Avila would be here longer than him. Well, and it blows my mind.
Here's what's so tough about that. He's already been here. He's hired in 2015, I believe, right? Or had stepped up.
He stepped in, yes.
I mean, that's 6 full years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, he has the longest leash simply because we're in year 6 and there's no end in sight. Like, from everything we've heard, there's no scenario where Avila's getting fired next year. And more than likely, he's safe the year after that. We're talking about a guy who stepped into the job and had an 8-year window from day one, basically. Mm-hmm. And look, there's reason to feel much different as this season's gone on. I want to say, from what I saw, the Tigers are 500 in their last 65, which is a solid stretch. It is. Like, you can look at a 65-game stretch and say, okay, like, this means something. Like, I don't want to go all in on anything. You put on the rundown that I think he's going to outlast Troy Weaver and Brad Holmes or Brad Holmes. I don't know. I'm not willing to say that. But I will say this. If he outlasts either one of them, it should mean that the Tigers are a playoff team in the next 2 years. There's no way that they should be allowed, because I don't see any way Brad Holmes is going in less than 2 years. And I would say Troy Weaver too. Yeah, I'd say both of those guys. Both those guys have 2 safe years left.
Well, here's the thing. With Brad Holmes, I think he has a little bit longer of a leash than a guy like Troy Weaver. I mean, that contract that Dan Campbell and he signed, it seems like those two dudes are pretty much joined at the hip. And it looks like Martha and Sheila and everybody who's involved in making decisions up at the top over in the Lions compound understand that this year right now, it's probably going to be a dumpster fire. And the year after that probably isn't going to be much better. I think they don't really get on the clock for a hot seat until probably year 3. And what that tells you, if we both think that Al Avila has a longer leash than those guys, I mean, what does Al Avila have to do to get fired around here?
When I say that, because I guess, like, when you look at it a big picture, maybe that's not a fair statement. But what I mean is, if the Lions are a dumpster fire for 2 years, if in the next 2 years they win 4 or 5 combined games, I could see them cleaning house. If the Pistons go 2 more years and still aren't a playoff team, I could see them cleaning house. I'm saying if those teams are a complete dumpster fire for 2 more years, I think they clean house. If the Tigers don't make the playoffs for the next 2 years, I don't think that really means anything, especially if they're competing for the playoffs 2 years from now. I just think that it's going to take 3, 4, 5 years of missing the playoffs before Avila is, like, definitely gone.
I agree.
Because honestly, I'm looking at the timeline of the guy that they just drafted, and saying you don't make that pick if you're not confident that you get to see his run to the major league.
And that's it right there. So you look at a guy like Matt Manning. Matt Manning was a high school pitcher. Matt Manning was drafted in 2016. He didn't debut until last month. It was legitimately, it was a month ago. June 17th, he made his major league debut. That's 5 years later that he shows up.
And from what I've read, this kid's supposed to have a quicker timeline than that, but still. I mean, so if you want to shave a year off, you're looking at least 4 years. What blows my mind is you've got a manager in AJ Hinch, who I think we both agree is very, very good. I think we both agree he is. I think is why they've been a large part of why they've been on the run they've been on.
Exactly.
And to be honest with you, I think it's possible, especially if they're willing to go out and spend, I think it's possible they are competing for a playoff spot next year.
Well, here's the thing. He's a guy who's basically taking chicken shit and giving you chicken salad all this season. Like this season, they started off so poor, and then he was able to turn it around in basically what we can deem the middle. And now they're about to start the second half of the year. It's going to be interesting to see how they end up. But so far, AJ Hinch has looked like an absolute wizard, taking guys that are odds and ends in weird pieces that don't necessarily fit, and he's getting the most out of them. Could you imagine if you gave him something that would be ready when this team would be ready to win? Like this team's not, I think we both agree as well that this team isn't ready to win next year. Probably the year after that, they're going to start to look to basically be in the playoffs and contend.
This is episode 75, I believe, and I've probably said this more than 75 times on this show. Baseball season exists to get me to football season. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't done that. The Tigers have not done that in 5-6 years. I think next year they should. I'm not telling you that means they need to get to the playoffs, but I think that next year in July, I should be watching Tigers games with the thought that they can still make the playoffs.
They should be interesting next year. And I agree with you.
Not just interesting. I should be watching games in July with the thought that they can make the playoffs. They don't need to actually make it. They don't even need to be in the race in August. I just need the month of July to be able to watch baseball and feel like it's meaningful.
All right. So would you meet me halfway? Would you say by year 3 they should be competing for a playoff spot then? So not this year, not next year. Next year you said they should be playing some meaningful baseball games in July. The year after that.
No, absolutely. And I'm saying that's what I'm saying is I'm saying if not, because that's where I was saying like the context is so important.
Yeah.
Like if Brad Holmes wins 10 games or Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, whatever. If this regime wins 10 games in 2 years, I think they get a third for sure. If they win 5 in 2 years, I don't know that they get a third for sure. So I'm saying the absolute quickest that they're gone is 2 years. The absolute quickest that I see the Pistons regime gone is 2 more years. If things were to just completely fall apart.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that bar shouldn't be the same for Attila. It shouldn't require things falling apart. If this team isn't I need to see them in a tight battle for a playoff spot down to the wire by 2 years from now.
And this is what I'm saying.
And honestly, that feels like we're being kind of generous, man. Like, I kind of think you need to make a wild card by 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you need to get into the full blown playoff, but you have been in charge of this for so long. And a lot of this is going to come down to, are they willing to spend money? But if they're not willing to spend money, I don't know, man. Like, I don't have the patience to wait more than that. I think 2 years from now, I want to see you in the playoff. And I don't think that that's what it's going to require for Avila to keep his job. I don't.
And that's why I don't think he's on the hot seat at all. Because if you look at this pick is at the most 4 years away. All right. If you would have went with the shortstop, who maybe would have been on a 2-year timeline, he would be able to provide you some substance at the major league level when this team was ready to win. Instead, they go with the 4-year pitching project that could possibly pay dividends. And you said it yourself, generally high school pitchers, when they get called up, it just doesn't work.
Well, and we'll move on.
The track record's not great.
We'll move on here in just a second. But the one thing I do want to at least put out there is this organization has very clearly had an organizational belief for a long time that pitching prospects are more valuable than positional prospects.
That's something came from Dave Dombrowski.
I'm going to be honest with you, I agree with it. If this organization is willing to spend money, which is something we don't know yet, if they are willing to spend money, you may never see this kid I keep saying this kid because like his name escapes me. It's Job, right? Jackson Job. You may never see him as a Tiger because you could make the case that 2-3 years from now he's a stronger trade piece.
Yeah.
And if that's the mindset, like I'm a little bit more okay with it. I still don't necessarily know that it's the route I would have gone, and I refuse. I've said this to the few people I've talked to about the draft. I refuse to kill any MLB draft pick. I just don't know enough. But I do subscribe to the same theory that if you're willing to trade pieces and spend money, pitchers are more valuable than position players.
What did you think about what the California Angels did, where they drafted 21 pitchers?
I think it's video game-esque, but it seems to speak to the same thing. I told you, I think pitching prospects are worth more if you're willing to
pitching prospects money. are. I mean, you could just look at it with the Tigers organization, right? They were able to spin pitchers off and get a guy like Miguel Cabrera here. So, yeah.
Well, That deal included Andrew, not Andrew. What the fuck's his name?
Andrew Miller was part of that.
Andrew Miller and Cameron Maybin.
Yeah, who's been traded more times than just about anybody I know. They were both
top prospects, so it wasn't just pitchers. There was a hitter involved in that as well.
And in the end, Andrew Miller was obviously the better player out of the two. Became one of the better closers for a stretch. It was a small stretch, but he was a pitcher.
No. I'm saying, was he the better player? It's an interesting question. I don't actually know that I have a definitive answer to that.
I don't think either one of them were great, but I think for a stretch, Andrew Miller was an extremely dominant. Yeah, he was extremely dominant closer.
A 3 or 4 year span.
Yeah,
but it was only a 3 or 4 year span, and what he did was pitch 1 inning a day 70 times a year.
Is Cameron Maybin still playing in the league?
I think he was traded last season, so he might not be right now, but he has been for a while.
That's really weird. That Marlins trade was nuts. I don't know.
We'll get into Stafford stuff because we got to. Stafford's being talked about nationally. How can we not talk about him here? But first, I built my expensive, we'll call it, PC.
How much did you spend on it? Let's talk about it. Do you mind telling?
I did not spend as much as it is worth.
Okay. So
here's the thing. I would never build a PC.
How much did you spend and how much is it worth?
I probably spent So here's where this is difficult. What I spent on the PC parts, $600.
Okay.
But when you include everything, I also bought a keyboard. I still have to buy a new monitor. I bought a monitor a while back that I knew was going to be my secondary monitor for this. I bought thermal paste, which is not a part, but it is something I needed. When you start factoring everything in, I bought a new desk. You're probably looking at $800 to $900 that I've spent so far, and still another $200 to come, maybe. Here's what happened, because I would never build a computer. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. I spent, like I said, $600-ish on the parts that I bought, but I was gifted a graphics card, which is one, the most expensive part.
That's the most expensive part.
And two, impossible to come by right now.
What kind of graphics card did you get? Let's nerd out a little bit.
I'm not capable.
Oh, you don't know?
That's why this was terrifying, Stroz. I can't nerd out. I can't tell you anything about anything that went into my computer. I just click things in and put them where my brother basically told me to put them.
So walk me through how this goes, right? So you said that your brother helped you build this, right?
Yeah.
And basically, he was giving you the direction. This is like when I work on my car and my dad's yelling at me, except your brother probably wasn't yelling at you and telling you how stupid you are.
So the first day was 4 hours. He said he thought it would take about an hour.
So here, I'm going to tell you this. Anytime you think it's going to take X amount of time, hit a 2 times multiplier on it.
Oh, a 2 times. He
Yeah.
thought it was about an hour. It was 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday.
Here's the thing. I was looking at...
it was a 4 times multiplier, 2 different days.
We're looking to put a new back door on and a new screen door on Alyssa's house. And I'm like, yeah, this shouldn't be all that hard. I'm like trying in my head. I'm like, I've got it planned out how we're going to do it because the door opens the wrong way. So I'm like, this shouldn't be that hard. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, it's probably going to take about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2. I was like, cool, throw that 2 times multiplier on it. We're looking at least 4 hours and me maybe having one massive blow up. Not real sure.
So there was definitely no blow up. My brother was definitely getting frustrated towards the end of the day on Saturday. Because here's the thing, he wasn't there. It was over FaceTime and he was giving me directions. And when things are going wrong, I'm asking him questions and he can't see. And I will tell you the part about it that if you ever go to build a PC and you don't know what you're doing, the number one thing I would tell you is you would not believe how much force you have to use. You have to push a lot of different things really hard. And that's scary because these are expensive parts.
And they're all so small.
Yeah. So you're just afraid you're going to break something over and over again. And honestly, I can't tell you how many times I had problems with something and the answer was just push harder. If I just went in and if you told me any part that I broke by using too much force would be replaced for free, we probably could have cut that 8 hours in half. I'm being serious.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we could have done it in 4 hours if I would have not been afraid to just snap something.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the USB port, one of the parts that I had to plug, the pins got bent. I didn't have needle nose pliers or anything. My brother suggested it. It was a good call. Nail clippers. I grabbed nail clippers and just bent it back into shape, and thankfully that worked. Which like this was
just an interesting life hack right there, by the way.
This would have, so the thing is, this only worked was for like the extra USB ports. So even if that was a problem, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. It would have been obnoxious. This is, I would say it's probably about $1,200 computer. And like to have things not work from the start would be obnoxious. In fact, it's supposed to have a bunch of lights. The fans are supposed to be red, green, and blue. None of that's working. The motherboard is supposed to be red, green, and blue. None of that's working. Clearly, I missed some plugs somewhere, and I refuse to open it to try and fix it. This motherfucker's not moving until it has to.
So here's the thing. I once damaged my keyboard on my computer. So I had to... What's that?
Your keyboard, this fucking dude.
No,
my keyboard.
It's a laptop.
Like 1/15 of my computer.
Oh, for sure. But like this is going back to your point. I'm trying to strengthen your argument here. So just give me a second. So the keyboard, I had to order it from China, and it took like 3 months to get. So everything I did, I had to do like on the touch screen on my laptop, and that was like super annoying. Anyways, I get the keyboard in. I've got to install it, and you're right. There are so many little screws. There are so many little parts that you have to unplug to get two pieces. And so many things you have to take out. And then when you're putting them back in, it's like you said, just push a little bit harder. But you're terrified because everything feels like it's paper thin.
Sometimes it's push a lot harder.
It's bonkers because everything feels so like it's just kind of like, best way I can describe it. Everything feels kind of like a wafer cookie. Like at any point, you can just push your finger through it, and it's gonna snap in half.
And I think like what I learned is it's not as fragile as you think. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, so like I was terrified every step of the way. Stroz, you know me, and anyone who listens to the show regularly knows me. I'm not often an asshole. That's not to say I'm never an asshole, but I as I was doing this and having like, some issues here and there and trying to like guess and check and figure out things. I'm like also texting a couple of friends. The reason I didn't pay as much as it cost. So I was gifted the graphics card from the start. And then I was slowly buying parts. And then two of the friends who I play games with wanted me to finish sooner. So they just both bought me a part. So 3 of the parts of my computer I did not buy. But anyways, I was texting them like, trying to figure out issues as well. And on Saturday, I'm not freaking out too much. Like I'm freaking out all day, both days, but we'll get to the worst of it. So Saturday, I'm like going through everything. I'm sweating my ass off, by the way, like doing all this. And I'm like 3 hours deep in the day. And one of my friends who bought a part for me says, we want pictures. And I didn't say anything. This is in a group chat with the 3 of us. I didn't say anything, but in my head, I thought, I don't give a fuck what you want.
Yeah.
I literally could not care less what you want right now. And so I didn't say anything. And like after I was done for the day, 4 hours in, I took a picture, sent it to him. I talked to him later that day and I told him that, and he laughed because same thing, right? Like he knows like that's not the person I normally am. But I will say I feel a little bit bad, and I didn't apologize because in my head I was like, they know what's going on. They know me. But the most terrifying thing of all, it's all done. Click the power button. Nothing happens.
Oh,
nothing. We troubleshoot a little bit. Thankfully, it was just some loose cords. Push the power button. Fans are spinning. Some lights are on, but nothing shows up on the screen. I'm actually more terrified now, even though things are going well.
Did you forget to plug the monitor in?
We'll get to it. The answer's no, but in a roundabout way, kind of.
Okay.
And they're like texting me like some basic questions, like do this. Like how whenever you have a tech issue, they're like, did you try turning off the computer or turning it back? All those kind of things. And I didn't immediately respond like an asshole, but someone's like, is everything plugged in? And I replied, no, I'm just staring at a bunch of pieces that aren't put together, wondering why nothing's happening. It was the most asshole response I could have possibly sent. And then finally, one of them goes, is the monitor plugged into the graphics card, not the motherboard? Which I didn't know it had to be plugged into a specific part. In fact, my brother didn't either, and my brother knew what he was doing. And then I moved the HDMI from the motherboard to the graphics card, and that fixed my problem. So I am recording now from this new computer, and it will never be taken apart again. Even though part of like owning a gaming computer, one of the reasons people do it is because instead of having to buy a new console every few years, you could just upgrade parts as you go.
Yeah. There
are parts I am willing to and comfortable changing, but some of them I'm just like, I don't I'm going to have to pay somebody to change my parts because I will not touch that ever again.
That's funny. So how long did it take you to build this? Like, was it just a weekend, basically?
4 hours Saturday, 4 hours Sunday.
Okay. Yeah, that's not too bad, I guess.
It was 7 hours initially. And then I realized I put the power supply in upside down, which is not a major issue. But the power supply, according to my brother, is like the most indestructible part of the whole thing. He's like, it's a brick. Like, you will not break it. So I was like, okay, whatever. I took it apart, put it back in the right way. And so when you include that, about 8 hours. And then another 2 hours or so of building my desk.
All right. Yeah, not too bad, I guess. And this was more terrifying. Doing this was more terrifying than the first time you had sex.
So Matthew Stafford has been getting a lot of talk. No,
no. We're talking about your sex life.
No,
here,
no. I mean, like, dude, like I said earlier, you wanted to tease it and get back to it later. I think
it's later.
When you've been in a relationship for 2 years, it's a lot less terrifying.
Why'd you make her wait 2 years, B?
This is the part that we didn't get into enough. So I wouldn't say that I made her wait 2 years. I would say that it was a mutual decision to wait for 2 years. But of the two of us, she was more willing and ready than I was.
Okay.
So, like, the thing is, like, when we started dating in high school, I was very religious. And I actually would say, like, only got more religious over the early part of our relationship. And that's not to say that that was all of it. But that certainly played a role. And I'm being honest, Stroz, when we started dating, like, I had never even thought of having sex before marriage. Like, there was not a single part of me that had considered that. So there wasn't like how long am I being made to wait? It was just like, no, like, that's, we're going to wait till marriage. Mm-hmm. And that was never expressed, by the way. It was just like how it was we've talked about it before, how innocent I was. That was common sense in my mind. That wasn't a decision I was making. That was just how the world worked.
Right.
And I remember we went away every year for like our year anniversary. And when we went away for our first year, we were like, should we take condoms? And we decided against it, which was a collective decision. And then we went away for our second anniversary, and then it kind of came up again. And she was like, yes, we should. And
did you get bullied into your first time?
No, not at all. not even a little bit. I mean, I'll say this. That whole first weekend, every experience was awful. It was terrible. But if there is one thing that I could say about it, there was absolutely no sense of, and like, it just kind of happened. I don't know. It was the most like, it just happened thing I can possibly explain. We were both like, yeah, like it was a very like, yeah, we're ready, and probably over ready. Like, it could have happened sooner. But both of us, I think, were more like rather wait too long than not, than too quick, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Right? Like, some
full disclosure, I've shared this with you. You're aware of this. It's not like we didn't do anything.
Oh yeah, no, you did.
We had been fooling around within hold on. I could do the math here real quick. 5 months.
Okay. All right. And it was a lot of first, second, third base.
Well, I mean, the first second happens quickly, right?
Yeah.
The rest of the stuff.
Everything else takes a while.
First and second happened in the first, like, maybe 2 weeks.
So the whole point of this segment, I mean, was not to find out about your first time, which I think is fantastic. It's probably more interesting than you building your laptop or your PC. But the question was, what is something that you've done that's terrified you the entire time? So my first time terrified me. Is
that what you planned to talk about?
No, not at all.
No, I asked because when I was trying to come up with a topic, I asked you if you've ever done anything that terrified you from start to finish. And you were like, I think your response was like, LMAO, yes, 100% the topic. So I wish that was your thought when I texted you.
No, honestly, I wasn't even going to talk about it until you started talking about yours. And I was like, oh yeah, like your first time was terrifying. Hold on.
Until I started talking about mine. You asked about it. Let's not like act like I'm the one who put this out there. By the way, middle segment, you say I want to talk about pizza too much, but that's bullshit. You just want the middle segment to be about my sex life.
All the time. The best part about these segments is after the girlfriend listens to them, she'll turn around, she'll be like, man, he's such a good guy.
It is a constant battle. This middle segment is a constant battle between me wanting to talk pizza on one side, Stroz wanting to talk sex on the other. And in the early life of this podcast, I was winning. Somewhere along the line, I have lost that battle.
Sorry. But other things that have terrified me that I've worked on. So, like, have I ever told you about my fear of electricity?
I mean, no, but does everybody not have that?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I hate working with electricity. And recently, the girlfriend wanted some lights redone in the house and new fixtures put up. So I had to get my brother-in-law over there because he loves doing electrical work. He's great at it. I, however, am terrified of it. And the thing is, he was basically there kind of coaching me through what I needed to do. Like, I was the one up there basically touching the wires and moving things around. She had a light that was at the very top of her stairs. And it wasn't like you could get on the landing for the second floor. You had to be on the stairs to change it. So I had to go get this ladder that I had bought to change one of the other light fixtures. And I had to prop it up on like one of the stairs, and I had to lean it up on part of the ceiling. And I had to get up there and try to change this. Now, mind you, I had been electrocuted multiple times trying to change a light fixture for a prior girlfriend. Like, I had like a big blue ball of flames blow up in my face. And I was like, I hate electricity.
I would refuse to ever do it again, man.
Yeah.
I would live in a house with no power before I would fuck with electricity.
Look, man, love's a crazy thing. It makes you do weird shit sometimes.
No. That's people are supposed to have boundaries, and electricity is one of them.
Look, I'm a habitual boundary stepper, so it's what it is.
Anyway, habitual other people boundary stepper
for sure, not my own boundaries. Anyways, I'm up on the stairs and I'm trying to change this light fixture, and mind you, it's just not working. It's not cooperating. None of it is working. I also trying to make sure the power for this specific outlet is turned off. And mind you, my brother-in-law is like, yeah, we can just shut it off here at the wall. And I'm like, no, we can't. And like, he's like, yeah, you can. I was like, no, it's a two-way switch. It's not going to work. Just because you can shut it off down here doesn't mean it kills the power. I was like, we need to shut this off at the circuit breaker. So I'm like screaming at her. Like, at this point, I'm having my blow-up moment. I'm screaming at her. And it's more because I'm terrified that, one, I'm going to fall down the stairs because it was the most rickety thing I've ever had to set up to try to do something. And two, I'm going to get electrocuted and then B, fall down the stairs. So it was absolutely horrible. And that's recent. But also, yes, my first time having sex was terrifying. So, Do you
want to get into it for 2 minutes?
No, not particularly. I mean, the girlfriend's going to listen to this. She doesn't need to hear about it. And I'll tell you about it if you want to.
No. We don't need to.
I'll be honest with you. I killed it my first time. Like, I beat it up, but I was scared and I did not go, and I wasn't even sure I was putting it in the right place. I had to she had to basically reach down there and like adjust it because like I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then also I had zero rhythm. Zero.
The usual at this point in the podcast, we transition back into sports in a way that simply can't be done majestically.
He said majestically.
Stafford, sex, same thing, right? They're basically the equivalents of each other.
Stafford and my first time, yes.
Can I tell you what is actually sex? Mechanical keyboards.
Mechanical keyboards?
I have a mechanical keyboard for the first time in my life, and there's simply no explanation. I can't put into words.
Can you show me what this looks like? I don't even know what this is. Oh, that's fancy.
I mean, all he's seeing, if you're not aware of what a mechanical keyboard is it's got light in the background. But specifically what makes it a mechanical keyboard is the keys, like rather than just slowly popping back up, like there's like something underneath them designed to push back up. So as you're typing on it, for one, there's like a loud clacking sound. But that's not even what it's about for me. For me, it's like it feels like the tiniest imaginable massage on your fingertips. Because there is like an upward pressure on the button after you press it. And it's like the simplest physical pleasure I could possibly explain.
And that feels like sex to be.
Yes.
And that's what Matt Stafford is to be.
Yes. No, the greatest pleasures in the world, Matthew Stafford and mechanical keyboards.
You're out of your mind.
But anyways, Matthew Stafford getting a lot of love. this week from multiple different places. And I didn't necessarily set this up for you, Stroz, entirely the way that I wanted to get into it. The question I want to ask you is, when his time is said and done in Los Angeles, will Matt Stafford be looked at as better? Will people look at him and say, we were wrong about him in Detroit, he's even better than we thought? Or will they look at him and say, man, that guy was really hidden in Detroit. Like, he's a lot worse than we thought, but he got away with it because he was in Detroit. And Stroz, I'm nervous because a part of me has always wanted this. And I think anything in life that you've always wanted, when you get it, you're scared. I've always wanted Stafford to leave and show you just what you weren't appreciating enough. And I do think no matter what Stafford does in Los Angeles, Jared Goff is going to do a great job showing you just how little you appreciated what Stafford was. But Stafford's 33 now. The league has moved forward. Like, let's be clear here. I was team trade Stafford. I wasn't all in on it, but I found myself leaning that way because I understand that at this point in his career, Stafford, I still think, is a very good quarterback, but the league has come so far in the last 6-7 years. I think 25, 26, 27-year-old Stafford was an elite quarterback. I don't look at him that way anymore. And the problem I have is, unless he's an MVP candidate in Los Angeles, I think people are going to look at him and say, he's not doing as well as we thought he would. He was able to hide in Detroit for all these years. I'm afraid that it's going to hurt his legacy, and I don't think that it's fair. I don't think that it's if he comes out and sucks, then that'll just be confusing. But what I'm saying is, like, this Stafford is a good quarterback. Unfortunately, at this point in his career, he's not an elite quarterback. And I haven't argued that for a couple of years.
To me, I think it's absolutely bonkers the way that he's getting all this national praise. Like, ESPN ranked him 6th, like just outside of an elite quarterback.
And I wouldn't even tell you. I would tell you that's too high.
Yeah, and which is crazy to me because you're a Stafford lover, right?
Well, there was a time in his career that was fair. I believe that. I believe that there was a time when Stafford was between 5 to 10. Now I think it's probably more just on the outside of 10.
Right.
12, 13 maybe.
It's weird to me how you could basically go change your logo, change your team colors, and change your mascot, and all of a sudden you get this crazy bump. And you move from being maybe upper mid tier quarterback to being just outside of elite. I think that's absolutely crazy.
I do think we need to consider he's not just leaving Detroit, because I think that a lot of people have that thought, right? Like Detroit versus everybody. And there might be some of that. He's also going to Los Angeles. He's going to he's going to
a coach that has a great offensive mind.
And he's going to a major market. You want to appeal to those major markets.
It's like, so for football though, is like LA really a major market?
I know that
do the
don't
fans
care about football in LA, but there's a lot of them there. There are just a lot of people.
I don't know, and it's a huge media.
It's still not Dallas or New York for football terms, but I still think the fact that he went to such a big market does play some of a role. Absolutely, McVay plays a role. McVay saying, talking him up plays a role. Him leaving, there's a lot of parts to it. I just, if I'm being honest, I think that he's going to be really good, but he's not going to be the 4, 5, 6 good that the hype that is being generated right now is suggesting he will be. And then it's going to damage the way people look at him.
I think when it's all,
people who hate him are going to look at him being QB 11 as like this massive victory. Like, we told you he's not elite. Like, listen, asshole, he's 33 years old. The league's come a long way, and I didn't say he was that good anymore.
I love when you get fired up. It's great. I think when it's all said and done, though, I think this move maybe does tarnish some of that legacy of his. I think what ends up happening is he's going to be under, I think, a bit more of a microscope, right? So when he has those really bad games, those off games that he's has the tendency to have, I think you're going to get guys like a Skip Bayless. You're going to get a guy like Stephen A. Smith who are just going to absolutely hammer him for whatever that week was. But I think when he has those games where he throws 4 touchdowns and he throws for 450 yards, I don't know if the praise is necessarily going to be there. I think when it comes down to it, when it's all said and done, his time in LA, and I don't know if he finishes his career there or not. I would assume that he probably would. I think that he is going to be looked upon as a quarterback. Now, I'm going to throw this caveat out there. Unless he wins the Super Bowl, he's going to be looked upon as this quarterback who was always really, really good, just not good enough. Couldn't get the job done. And I think the only thing that saves him is if he can get that Super Bowl victory. I don't know if that's fair or not. I don't know if that's fair.
I promise you that's not fair. It's absurd. It's 33-year-old Stafford going into a team that's lost a few steps, who couldn't win a Super Bowl when they had everything else but the quarterback. If you put Matthew Stafford on that team that scored 9 points, was it? Was it even that many against the Patriots in a Super Bowl? I think we're having a different discussion. But this isn't that same team.
It's not. But at the same point, like, you can't act like Matt Stafford didn't have anything here, right? He had a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He had a good defense, 1 or 2 years that he played. So, like, the thing is, he's never won a playoff game.
Here's the problem, and I don't want to get too deep in this. We've had this conversation for years.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he had a good defense 1 or 2 years. And I understand that they didn't win the playoff game. There was one time in his entire career where he had both really good receivers and a good defense.
Yes.
They did not win that playoff game. But that year, that team could have done anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird to see a team that lost a first-round playoff game was a Super Bowl contender. But I think they were. And I don't know that we were saying that back then because we were scared to say that. Maybe you don't want to go that far. But they were certainly an NFC contender. Dez caught it. That was that year. They went on to lose on the Dez caught it play, the team that you should have beat. So I don't want to get too deep into it. He didn't have enough chances here. And I'm worried that this dude who's in the later part of his career is going to get judged like he's 27 right now. And again, the league has changed. There was a time period where Eli Manning was considered an elite quarterback. In today's NFL, Eli Manning, prime Eli Manning in today's NFL would not be a top 15 quarterback.
He'd probably be 26, 27.
And the point that I'm trying to make is that Stafford played in that NFL where Eli was debatably a prime quarterback. And for the following 5-6 years after that, Stafford was in that conversation. He's still very good. I know one name I've seen him debated against is Dak. I think Dak is a better quarterback than Stafford. I think Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback. I think Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. Lamar Jackson's an interesting discussion, but I would say Dak. There are 6 or 7 guys who I wouldn't even consider arguing Stafford against. So my problem is, that doesn't take away from what he should have been at his peak, but he's being judged like this is his peak, and it's not. This is not peak Stafford. It's not far off. I'm not saying he's fallen off a cliff, but he's the old man watching the younger guys climb the ladder.
Mm-hmm. So this is the thing I think that's kind of hurt Stafford the last couple of years. His body's just kind of betrayed him a little bit. It's kind of broken down. Do you think we have a situation where that happens this year in LA?
I predict injury. I think that's kind of silly, to be honest with you.
No, I'm just wondering if for some reason he has. So here's the thing. You go back and you look at his career the last, we'll say 5 years. It's always something. It's always a weird hand injury. It's always a bad back. It's always a hip injury. It's always something.
It's almost like he plays in the NFL.
Right. But the thing is, it's one of those things that ends up derailing his season. He'll be lighting it up. And then all of a sudden I've got a bad finger.
Here's my problem with this.
Thumb.
When he missed his first 2 years, he was, people wrote him off and said that he can't stay healthy.
He was a China doll. Yeah.
And then how many years did he go without missing a game? I struggle with the idea of, he's been hurt a lot the last couple of years, so that means he will definitely be hurt moving forward. Yes, he's a 33-year-old man in a violent sport. It's certainly a real possibility. And I would not be the slightest bit surprised if Stafford struggles to stay healthy the rest of his career. I also wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't miss a game the rest of his career.
The reason I ask you this, right, is because we're talking about how he's going to be remembered when he's done playing in LA. And I wonder if those injuries end up coming in, they kind of cloud some of the perception of him.
I see. The thing is, I actually think injuries in a way, they certainly change the legacy if that becomes what the problem is the rest of his career. But I don't think they damage it all that much. It becomes he was pretty good at his peak. As he got older, he struggled to stay healthy like a lot of older quarterbacks do. I feel like Big Ben is the same way. That dude's 39. When's the last time Big Ben stayed healthy?
That's true, but Big Ben's got 2 Super Bowls, and
it doesn't matter. That's stupid. What does that have to do with injury? You're just like, and Matthew Stafford.
No, but like I think you look at Ben Roethlisberger different because he's been there, he's done that, he's won. Okay, Stafford hasn't even climbed that mountain. Stafford doesn't have a playoff win.
His first Super Bowl, he literally made his team worse. His second Super Bowl, he was a damn good player. But like that has nothing to do with anything what we're talking about here, anyways. Like it's just jumping all over the place. If he can't stay healthy the rest of his career, that will be a part of the story. That yes, as he got older, he started to struggle with injuries. But I don't think people will say, "Damn, he was hidden in Detroit, positively or negatively." If injuries are the story, which is what I'm asking. Like, will he be viewed either way? I think people are going to say Stafford was hidden in Detroit. Is it damn he was a lot better than we realized, or is it damn he was a lot worse than we thought?
Probably going to be damn he was a lot worse than we thought. That's just how I feel.
I worry about that, whether or not it's the fair answer. Mm-hmm. But I think I'll say that that's the more likely answer. Because this isn't the NFL anymore, where 15 guys just suck at quarterback. The bad quarterbacks in today's NFL, the bottom 5 or 6 are bad. But after that, the dudes who are, 23, 24, 25 in today's NFL, they'd have been top 15 quarterbacks 10 years ago. And Stafford was playing 10 years ago.
I don't think the preseason hype for him will help either.
No,
right?
That's what's scaring me. Is it feels like it's setting him up for failure.
Yeah, exactly. Like it almost feels like no matter what he does, so he goes out, he has a pretty good season. It still might not be good enough.
If he's not in the MVP conversation at the end of the year, I think people are going to look and say he was a disappointment. And I think that that's unfair. I don't think that he's not an MVP quarterback at this point in his career. That's what I'm saying. The expectation is MVP, and I'm telling you he's not that. Even though you could argue he was traded like he was that. 2 firsts for a quarterback at that age. I mean, Aaron Rodgers might get 3 or 4. Aaron Rodgers isn't that much older, is he? 2-3 years older?
I think 2 years older.
He's older, but like he was. I don't know. It's something I worry about.
It's crazy how that Stafford trade has really affected the NFL, just the league, because Aaron Rodgers, the market for Aaron Rodgers basically dried up after the Stafford trade. Like if Green Bay was going to move on from him, and Green Bay can't necessarily move on from him for any less than what you got for Stafford, right? It put Green Bay in such a tight spot, I feel, that trade for Matt Stafford. It's absolutely bonkers to me.
I did see a great, because of all the Stafford talk, you have a lot of people saying he's overrated, a lot of people saying he's underrated. I did see a great tweet. If you think the NFL media is overrating Matthew Stafford, wait till you hear what the Rams traded for him. I thought it was a really good point.
That's funny.
It's not just the media who thinks Stafford is a damn good quarterback. Now it's the Los Angeles Rams. I think that'll do it for this.